Hello, welcome to this video. This is a level 5, 102 sort of video within my energetic system series. My name is Allie with A. Marie Speaks, and this is going to be a quick walkthrough of a couple of infographics that I have to present about the field of reality. I hope you've watched 101. If you haven't, and if you are brand new, you can certainly watch the video. I'm sure you'll get some takeaways from it, but it would be wonderful if you would take time at a later time or after the video or whatever to jump into level 1 and to really start the videos down there because there's a lot of foundational working and building up into the concepts that we're talking about here with level 5. And most crucially, I'll say, we're looking now outwards from our internal system into reality. And it's really important to have a strong foundation so that you can look at things with clear eyes and capable discernment at what you're really seeing, not to be tricked or fooled. And that's why I've really taken my time to build up the series through these levels and through the inner work before I bring it to this point. So yeah, just food for thought for anybody who's brand new. And for those of you who are not and who have been watching through the series, thank you so much for your audience and for joining me today. I'm going to try to keep it as on point and quick as I can without a lot of catch up from before. So just for anybody again who is new, you know, if you're looking for my definition of what systems are, the purposes and why I'm talking about it and what I feel is my intentions behind it and the purpose and all of that. Like I said before, you could watch some of the previous videos and I always get into it at some point. um, but for now, for this 102 class, what I'd really like to do is to just pull up my infographics and we'll just walk through them because there's a couple of them and I want to try to keep this video not too long this morning. So share my screen. The first thing I'm going to bring up the first two are, oldies but goodies. I've talked about them before. I've used them in other videos. I believe especially this one, you'll notice it says organic structuring of the matrix. I was using this and built this in my negative agenda matrix overlay series that I did over on BitChute. I don't know, maybe 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago or something. But that is super interesting. If you're really intrigued or called towards those kind of words, like the archons or the negative matrix overlay, and learning about that and the negative system control, mind manipulation, that kind of thing, I have maybe 30 videos. I'm not really sure how many I did over there. I'll link the playlist below. It's over on BitChute. I don't think I ever put them on YouTube. But yeah, they're worth watching if you're intrigued by that kind of stuff. But I really built the system series out of that because I felt it was so crucial for us to really get out of the entanglements of the negative matrix overlay and start to remember that, wait a minute, this is just how negative systems work. It's just one way of doing things. There is infinite potentiality in this universe, and there's also a whole playscape of positively organized, positively structuring and flowing systems and potentials out there that we could turn our lens and build over here. Um, and so that's why I really just wanted to really, kind of give an FU to the system in my own way by not even encouraging it or giving it a bit of my attention. And instead, really focusing on the truth of the matter, which is how they're operating, the energetics of the systems, and how we relate to them, so that we could stop giving our energy and our time to systems that we don't want to empower, right? It's that plain and simple. Then those things will crumble and fall apart, and we'll have built things that we do feel empowered by and that we do want to put our intention into. And what we do first is by understanding that we, as the system as a whole, as we've been talking about through all of these levels, right? We get a chance to observe and interact with reality in 3 ways. just like we've been talking about, we are three systems here: mind, body, and spirit, right? Um, Inner, outer, and the flow is another way to look at it. Like when we talked about the torrido. Um, and when we are in this level of consciousness, this system, right? System sets a boundary of a whole and it calls it that thing. But as creator consciousness, we have our choice to, sort of take our observation out and look at other potential boundaries, look at systems as other parts, look at bigger pictures and smaller pictures, right? So that's what I'm really kind of offering and asking us to open up our mind to with this sheet here, and understanding that not only are we as a system three layers of happenings, but each of those three layers have their own lens to observe life through, have their own reality that they build out and interact with other and with spirit in. Um, and that can, is the mind, and it's the electrical, and we'll get more into, what that means out there in the world. And the body, obviously, physicality, and we have the physical reality and the spirit. And we have obviously the spirit um, realm or world, or however you like to look at that. Um, each one of those has potential conversations, interactions, and communication happening within all of them, right? Um, and so not only do we have the layers of reality that are all encompassing and that really span and run through everything, interlinking everything. Physicality, um, and physicality has to do with magnetism, and it has to do with obviously solid form and weight, and depth, certain dimensions and densities, right? Um, we have the um, mental body, of course, and that has to do with the electric firings, the processing, the functions that are taking place, right? The literal exchanging in and out and back and forth that all things are doing within you and that happen out there. And of course, there's the flow, the lemniscatic give and take, push and pull in and out. Um, that is always assessing and observing those two, right? Um, when we start to realize reality has these three bodies of existence and languages and everything, and process and point and purpose in there, it becomes much clearer and much easier to understand or imagine, even just not even understand, but just imagine what is really happening outside of us, what is really happening within us, and what we are doing when we're interacting at all times. Um, and there's so there's three levels of reality happening. There's also three layers of lenses that we are able to see and witness life through and witness reality through, right? We have the first person lens, our view we see out of our face. It's kind of like the auto roll. you know um, we have this other sort of realm or a lens of reality that we see through and that we interact through. And that has to do with our direct world and our communion space, who we interact with, who we step into these reality bubbles with and build out there, and what we do and how we build them out there, what little imprints we leave in them, what energy we leave behind, how we check in with them and monitor them, how we allow them to evolve or not, how we restrict them, maybe, all these things come into play in our direct world. And that lens that we are looking through is this sort of second person view, because it's not just our take on the world, it's not just our inner self thinking about processes, thinking about our life and stuff. It incorporates others, it incorporates change, or incorporates the unknown, right? The great other and mysterious and source and everything. Um, and that, yeah, that's what I like to call the communion space, or like the conscious collective. And the third, final sort of lens of observation that we have is the reflective collective, or the external world or the reflection of your world, the organic reflection, depends on whatever kind of thing you're interacting or pulling into your world. Um, because the external never actually touches you, and the external you never actually interact with. um, Basic example for really tight-minded, A-type people. Think about in science when you learned about no atoms actually ever touch each other. There's a tiny little space in between when you're standing on the ground or sitting, and they tell you in science you're not actually, your cells are not actually touching the chair. There's this great little space between because there's um, a repulsion happening or whatever. You have a million different explanations for that, but um, the point is, right, that you don't actually, it never comes into your boundary. It's never absorbed into you, never becomes part of you, like water or food does, or a conversation or energy or a hug or love. They come into you and they become part of the universe of you, right? But the external world cannot. The external world is much different. And things that the external world are a part of are really the media, are global scale things, are people you've never met or seen, um, in movies or on newspapers or whatever. Things that you hear through third party, that you have to assume. Those are the things that are of the external world. And it's so important to understand that as soon as we, as the conscious creator of our reality, acknowledge the external and wave our hand and pull something down and ask it and consent to it to enter our world and bring it into direct world, make it real, um, make it part of you. And that's a choice, always a choice. If you choose to not consent and ignore that external, it can't come into your reality. And I'm saying that just as for those who are out there to pick up the understandings of that, to protect yourself with sovereign right and conscious awareness, because you are an ever powerful conscious creator of your reality. I'm not going to get into a lot of the external reality, like I said at the start. um, I feel like that's highly manipulated, and it's hard not to end up in a negative orientation when we look at that, and I really want to avoid that for now. If you're interested, check the BitChute thing out, because yeah, I talked about that, sort of talked my ear off on that already. I will recircle around back to it once we have full understandings of like direct world reality, inner world realities, and how we could communicate and make real change in our direct world. Then again, we'll go back and return to foundations, talk about the Taurus again, the new layer, and then again, talk about external and what could really be happening, learn about mental programming, mind manipulation, and how to control and disconnect from that kind of stuff, how to identify the delusions out there, and how to disconnect your attention from it. But for now, like, it's so important, just as we started with the Taurus only and talking about the inner core and talking about our direct world, our inner world too. We'll do that here in level 5 with reality. But know that that external world is there, and know that it's your conscious choice whether you choose to turn a TV on, whether you choose to, click on a thing and read an article, or whether you choose to watch a movie or be obsessed and upset and reactive over X, Y, and Z person out there who's made some kind of choice that could implicate X, Y, and Z, maybe that could trickle down to you at some point. These things are really irrelevant to our real ever present moment in first person view in our systems that function really for us. So why should we entangle our energy negatively for no reason, right? um, so yeah, anyways, I have really blabbed on, but that's really what I wanted to cover and understand, that we have layers of reality happening, we have lenses in which we view reality, and then there is this sort of um, sacred boundaries that separate and connect the three, and exponentially the three in all directions. So yeah, without getting too confusing, I'm going to leave it there. The next infographic I want to take up is similar, and it looks the same with the concentric circles, and it is about sort of the same topic. But just to quickly show this. And I will share, and I have shared these before, like on Telegram or on the community tab in YouTube. So you could click on them. And if the text is too small to really read right now, if you want to really dive into the words here, I'll have those for you guys later. But this is just a couple of examples, right? About the individual can never directly experience the exterior world. And they know this, right? And I don't want to get caught up in the archons and structuring and stuff, but they know this. This is why, it's a carnival show. And the carnival didn't just come out of nowhere and just burst out of the ground one day. It was designed, it was paid for, it was constructed and built. It was walked through, it was tested, it's been simulated for which games are most popular, which ones, the house is going to win on always, which ones look like the best trickery. They've spent a long time, the architecture here, of the exterior world. That's why, again, it's so important to just detach and not even worry about it. But anyways, the main reason I'm bringing this is to give a couple quick examples, right? We have our inner world, and our inner world really is the first place, and if it's something you have to tell another about, if it's anything inside here, that's your inner world. As soon as you tell someone about it, becomes part of your direct world, right? And it's all the people any place you've ever gone, things that you've experienced. And the exterior world, like world events, news media, books, society, all that kind of stuff. The only world in which you are fully active is your own inner world. The only outer world you can interact with is your direct world. And the exterior world must be agreed upon by all its participants. Okay, so remember, you determine your own thoughts and feelings. This direct world is the only world that you can alter, affect, or change. And thirdly, right, no individual can interact directly with external space because it's a presentation. Right? We're not part of the presentation. We're here to view it and to learn lessons within it, whether you want to call it a simulation or organic growth or whatever. It doesn't really matter, but it's the point that the playscape is meant to be played on and enjoyed. It's not really in our conscious capacity to be trying to figure out who built it and why, but anyways, I'm going to stop that share screen and put it away and pull up my new views here. So quickly, this is sort of reiterating what I've already talked about with the Taurus, and the structuring, the triad of creation, right? But I really just brought this up to reiterate to people about positive systems and organic growth are free flowing. They're of an energy of open offering, of things that just come from within you that you just feel called to do or offer out. They're divinely bestowed, and they can't be copied. They can't be reproduced. That's why I love 1 + 1 = 3, and talking about how that's really the triad of creation right there. That really says it all. One and one, the same of something, coming together to create three, something totally new and different. And yet, when we look at a repetition, a model, we can see if we had 1 + 1 + 1, we would have 3, right? But it's easy to tell that when we see 1 = 3, it's very redundant. It's very obvious. We can tell. We count up one car, one car, one car. We have 3 cars. There's nothing new learned there. It's breaking down the 3 into its most obvious pairing. is sort of like dumbing it down. Almost, if you catch my drift, it's like taking the magic out of it and and trying to recreate. This is what the inorganic does. It reverse engineers the three in the only way that it could understand the concept of three, which is by counting the same thing 3 times and seeing that makes three, which is, yes, that's true. But the truth of 1 plus 1 equals 3, right? It's not a short form, it's magic. You have to have the inner knowledge to understand the joke and the magic of it, right? Because 1 human plus 1 human, yeah, we have 3 humans at the end, but they're not, they're a family. Father and mother equal 3, a whole subject, a whole concept, which is the family, or which becomes the child. The child of who? Of the parents. The child is the creation, is the physical manifestation of the creation, and creational energies bringing these two, putting forth their efforts in birthing one thing. And it's not just 3 humans, right? Family, mother, father, all of these ties, roles, lessons, love, thick emotions and meaning and intentions and purpose, a lifelong growing and molding and ascension and evolution comes in when we talk about family, when we talk about the birth of a child and the role of mother and father and child, right? There's so much more there than adding and grouping 1 car, 2 cars, 3 cars, and we have 3 cars here, right? Family isn't just 3 humans. It's more complex than that. It's magical. And that's another thing about copies and in intelligent, in artificial creation. They reverse engineer products, but they don't grasp the work, the sweat and tears, the emotion that goes into the actual product. And so when they make instructions and to manufacture the solution or the product that they want, right? Um, it's not hard to tell the difference when it comes out. Just like it's not hard to tell the difference between AI art and art a real human made. I don't care how beautiful the AI art is. I can tell it right away. You always can. There's always something that's just not correct. It's just 3 cars. It's not a family, or it's just 3 people. It's not a family. But anyways, yeah. So let me just look here, make sure I was basically talked all about what I put on here, conscious intention and coming into things with active awareness. Like I said, I'll share it if you want to read the whole words if you haven't gotten a chance yet while I've been blabbing. But I do want to just move through these last infographics. Pushing time. Now, I'm going to go over this one. This is more almost like a terminology sheet with some pictures to go along with it for us to just sort of grasp some basic terminology and structuring. This is, like I said, just a buffet, just an offering, things to think on, not anything that I'm saying is like almost, has to be this way or anything, but from my perspective and things that I have been accumulating and thinking on, this is my best offering at this point. So this is structure and function of reality. At the top, I have this kind of like blurry blots, circle that's more condensed and clear with more attention at the center. And then we have outliers and bits sort of fraying off and becoming less and less from the center middle point, right? And that's what I'm kind of offering as a imaginary visualization point to sort of hanker into when you think about the ether. The ether, this is almost in my, this is only in my sort of grasping of an explanation here to help. Feel free to edit and alter it and change it in any way you want. But if you see the fields next to it, multidimensional, all-encompassing net or grid of sorts, which unites, links, and is an inherent part of all things manifested within the creation. It is made of infinite intelligence. And so, yeah, I liked this wavy sort of flat linear view of it in conjunction and in partnership with this circle that I have. And why is because I believe the net and this is like light almost, or something in which light flows through tubes almost, where electricity could run through, and light up lights as it goes through, perhaps, um, where we concentrate our energy, our thought, our love, or where more of that is concentrated and has been imprinted into direct world or into external world, becomes lit up more with more light, more infinite intelligence, more possibility potential, more density and condensing of that ether. That's why I have that center point more darker, right? Because that's where more condensed thought and intention is at. There's more light there. Um, and it's not just flat, think of it more as a real sphere, totally 3D, actually, reflected through all densities and dimensions. So it's more than that. Um, but yeah, that's sort of the gist of it, the beginnings of understanding sort of like this soupy, almost liquid like quality, except that it's more like a light. Feel free to tune that in a way that feels correct to you. Anyways, next thing to kind of bring into the scope is there's not just the ether, this energetic sort of intangible, like fluid plasma kind of essence to it, but there's dimensionality, there's density, there's real structure and formation happening. We have sacred geometry reflected there. I have the growth through the flower and the seed of life. It's the second sort of image to remind us of density and dimension and of physicality, and it's part of it. It's rules here, especially third, fourth density and dimensions, right? um, Beautiful shapes make everything. The framework in architecture which supports the entire growth model for this octave or version of reality. This geometry guides and sets allowances for all physical forms and laws, as well as energetic entanglements. So, dimensionality and density sets up sort of the scene for what kind of plays and we can play out. Um, and finally, the other thing I'd like to bring in, these other sort of real foundational parts of our reality, of course, is duality and polarity. And so within this constant language soup of movement and flow and infinite intelligence, the ether, we have structuring, building out spaces and corners and areas of architecture that we could play in, and ether can course through and set and through. And observe, right? And then we have this other added sort of happening of duality and polarity, right? Of charge and collections and potentiality and the give and take, the back and the forth. And the continually applied filter of interpretation through contrasts is major theme built into the structure of our reality. It creates infinite choice points or options to examine. And yeah, if you've ever heard me talk about before, the creation of infinity, um, excuse me, the concept of infinity and the creation of the finite universe, um, it's really important to remember it's a mystery, it's a joke, it's something that's good-hearted and set with a purpose and intention of unconditional love and happiness and enjoyment, of exploration of manyness, right? So I really love the Book of Ra, the Law of One books, because they speak of it so wonderfully, and the exploration of manyness. I just love that term because it really allows for negative and positive both, right? Duality. It's like an open arms of everything. um, anyway, so yeah, so these are sort of key points to anchor into, to sort of learn to discover what's happening. Remember, the three layers, the three lenses are all reflective in these three as well, right? So bring that into a space where you could ruminate on that later, what those three lenses and layers could look like within the ether, look like within dimensionality and density, look like within duality and polarity. Now, I'm going to take this one next. Okay. So this is exactly what we've been talking about. This is a three-part view of reality. Now we have our first person view, which is our individual life, right? And you can see sort of that like driving down the street and you see this way or that way, right? You have exits coming up, you have choices to make. You're the driver, you're going somewhere, right? The individual first person view is our natural setting. It's where we're most comfortable. It's most people are familiar with that. The third person, the middle view, right, is the third person view. It's our collective. And if you notice the picture there, it shows the whole town. It shows this view goes that way. And yeah, you might be on that road there, but it shows where that road goes. It shows where that road goes. It shows others in the vicinity, right? It's the collective of humanity, of us. Um, our species or race, whatever you want to look at that as, our life sort of essence, our conscious collective as we are. And the third part of reality, of course, is that creator consciousness, the worldview, the whole thing of it. Um, and I brought in down at the bottom another, the same thing, the layers of reality that we've already talked about. But it's important. This is the sliding scale that I was talking about at the start of the video, to remember the spectrum of impact potential that we actually carry with us in the first person view in our role here. You know, um, it's the truth of the setting. And so I don't feel like I want to discard that. I feel like, oh, I want to really dive into that because it must be a key feature of the experience here since, we're birthed into first person view. Um, if you look down at the bottom, the greatest impact potential where you have full dominion over your reality, over everything and anything that's happening, is within the inner reality and in your inner world. And we did a lot of work already talking about the inner core and systems and how we can align with those. So if you've missed that kind of talks and things, check out levels 2 or 3 and really get into it there. I've got great meditations. You can work with the bosses within you. Um, and if you're seeking control in the external world, if you're feeling worried or anxious about it, angry or annoyed about the external world in any way, or even things in your direct world, the initial change is a ripple effect, right? And the stone where it drops, the actual impact where you make it is inside you. And then it causes a ripple out. Then it causes you to act differently. Then it causes others to act differently around you and see you differently. And that changes your assumptions and perspective about the external world. Very last. Um, but where we have the full potential to make changes and to alter things is within our own self. And it's wonderful and it's tangible. Anytime that you feel out of control, go within and you'll find why you feel out of control. Question yourself about it. Get yourself back in control. Detach from the external world. And if it's something that's literally threatening you in your direct world, well, you're called to action. You're nervous for a real reason, right? And that's a blessing. And that's your conscious creator, infinite intelligence within you telling you there's action to be taken. So take the action and you'll feel better, right? It's that simple. Because as I'm saying, right, we get a little bit further out into our direct world, into the co-creative spaces, we have still a spectrum of influence. We have impact potential in our direct world. Um, However, we've been very manipulated about what the repercussions of interaction is and what echoing and reflective energies happen when we are out there in co-communing spaces. Um, you know, um, we've been set with false pretenses about what interaction is and about what exchanges are and expected of and stuff. And so we've been getting really bad feedback, but it's not our fault, really. It's that we are operating incorrect systems and then, that are negatively aligned and wondering why we're getting bad results. But it's because we've been fooled and tricked into thinking that the negative alignment of way that things should be is the only way. Like I said at the start, when in fact it's really not the only way. There's infinite different ways to operate and to change. You have to just choose for yourself to do it differently. And like I said before, if when we choose and we change inside of us, the ripple effect outwards becomes obvious because other people see us differently. We interact with others differently. We're more conscious of our interactions with others in the direct world. And by being more conscious in your direct interactions and by making your direct world more alive and conscious, right? You get better experiences. You're more awake and alive in those experiences also, and so you better know what's coming. If you choose to have ignorant blinders on and telling yourself lies, and you know you you're going to be surprised by the repercussions that come back at you. But again, if you're surprised by repercussions in your external world or you're unhappy with them, then no, it's a great sign because you have work to do on the inside. There's something rippling out that needs to be looked at within you. And once you look at that and correct whatever it is for yourself in there, for a good solution for yourself, it'll course correct itself out there. Um, it's reflective of the inner world. And yeah, so moving down the scale just a little bit, this is I don't want to get too long into this, but the free will dominion, the direct world, our co-creative spaces of the collective here on earth are so malleable. They are ever changing and moving, growing and shrinking and in and out, right? Everything is always um, interacting with everything else. And that's so crucial to remember when we are sort of looking at a reality, right, and assessing and observing it. We have an influence, an impact influence available in the direct world. And that really matters. That plays a huge role on our own personal evolution and ascension as an individual. Um, Sorry, my TV's going to skip a commercial, catch it right before it does it. um, this is how they fool us and can trick us with the external world. And if you see at my very end of my scale here, I have this sort of three-way mirror, vanity mirror here, with the least impact possible. We have no dominion out there in the external world. The external world is run by a different set of processes and functions. It's not the same as the human experience or as the collective experience of humanity. But there's a porous boundary and there's conscious choice of what you pull into direct world, right? And so this is where I like to call it the collective reflective, because it's been hijacked by the whatever agenda you want to call it, or the archons, or the negative alignment, whatever you seek to name them. uh, they know all of this obviously, and they really harness that outer world and the reflections, and it to play it to their benefit. They, instead of it being a fun house, a daytime, a good day at a carnival where you go through one of those good feeling fun houses where it's a bunch of good jokes and funny mirrors and you laugh at, you look at this way, and there's bright colors, and it's got a fun, nice feel to it while you make your way through, like happy scares, little jump scares, nothing big though. It's just funny things, you know. Um, but instead, they've turned the lighting down. They've made stormy music. They've put some, guy with a chainsaw there to scare you instead of just like a little happy clown to pop out or something. They've really harnessed it to their benefit to keep the energy negative within it, the atmosphere, so that they can feed off of it and use it for their systems, because all their systems run off negative energies. Um, but as we tune ourselves and we run off positive energy, we're not losing anything. We're actually gaining wonderful momentum when we do that. We're gaining power and energies. Our systems flow better when they work in a positive setting, actually. And when we gain that and feel that, um, you know, the negative can't intrude on us. They can't bother us. And their little tricks won't even work on us because we'll see from the outside, all the extra structure they built on top of that fun house metaphor, right? We'll see a guy with a step ladder shaking the wind thing, and we'll see another guy over this side who's flicking the lights, and the guy with the chainsaw, we'll see, oh, it's actually like a cardboard one, and there's a radio behind him with the noise, and we won't be scared by any of it. You won't even want to spend your time looking at it. You say, why are you wasting your time over there? Get off that ladder, stop fooling around. Come over here and let's make stuff. Let's do what feels great for us. Let's do what we're born to do, whatever it is, right? But instead, they've fooled us. They've made us believe that either we're trapped inside their scary house and we're wrapped up in it. We don't even know there's an outside, or we're outside of it in a crowd, poking at that guy, going and finding out his whole life story, the one who's shaking, the rainmaker and the chainsaw guy. We're going and trying to find out his background and figure out why he ever wanted to do that, or trying to break it down, or we're trying to figure out how we're going to burn it down, or we're trying to yell to the people inside to get them to come out. There's a million different ways to make this metaphor. And we're doing that, but instead we should just look over there and see beautiful grass and a lake and a beach or whatever pleases you, and go over there and fill up your days and time with things that feel good to you and your systems. Because in fact, that's the only place that you really have any power of dominion in any ways. And it's the only place you should have power of dominion. You don't want anybody to have power of dominion over you. Would you like that? No, not really, right? Um, and I've talked about this too, with respecting our inner systems and our bosses within us, and really creating a space of communion with them, of respect, of sovereignty, and an unconditional love for them and their purpose and their great role in our being, right? Um, so remembering where we have an impact potential and where we don't, remembering how to disengage from illusions and delusions, and to bring it back to what's real, because what's real is inside you always. And then if you reconnect with your real truths, even with your eyes closed, say for just a moment, and ground into your real truths in there, when you look out at the direct world again, you open your eyes, you'll see more clearly. You won't be fooled. You'll see the answer to the puzzle. The thing will come to you that is the solution. It will. It does. Um, so yeah, I'm going to leave that at that. Close this screen share and get into my last one here, which is similar setup, and it's just talking a little bit more about like the levels of reality, what's happening. Um, Not so much the perspective of which we observe reality through, but what is reality, right? What are the realities taking place? So same thing, the three levels. We have the earth scale, the large scale, the whole, what I'll call the whole for this example. Then we have humanity scale, which is the collective consciousness, that third person view, right? The mid scale. And then we have the individual scale, which is the personal scale, the smallest scale. And if you look down the bottom, we'll just go over really quickly. I have the mind as the inner world as the individual scale. I have the spirit flow as the humanity scale, the communion space. And then we have the body as the external, as the earth scale. And for these levels of reality, firstly, if you've missed the systems talks and you don't have this little background info from me, each reflection, whether mind, body, or spirit, whichever dissected third we're looking at the whole within, each one of those divine reflections actually holds within it triad again, mind, body, and spirit. And so the body has its own layers yet again. Every time you dive, it's like fractalization. Every time you look deeper and dive deeper, you will find more, just like in a microscope, right? So this is kind of the scale and the layers that I'm talking about here. It's thinking like telescope, regular vision, microscope, right? At the telescope, at the large scale, at this huge earthly size, right? This is the largest scale that I am talking about here. The body, the external world, right? It's our physical reality. It is all of the playscape that's allowed. And it represents the physical external systems, um, the body. The humanity scale and the spirit flow, um, that in this example, right? Yes, I mean, but all of them have reflections of the same. But for this example, the spirit in the flow is really the communication and the in between the individual and earth in the large scale, right? And how do we interact with the large scale? We build community, we build family, we build industries, businesses, co-ops, these co-communicative places outside of us, right? That are made up of all of our interactions. And um, that's why I'm using this reference as the spirit, and calling it the spirit flow for this sort of model of representation. And we have the mind as the inner, and of course as the individual, because we are each this sort of um, unique, tiniest portion of this example, right? Um, each one of these scaled realities has a purpose for its scale, has a purpose of why it's embodied and what happens while that whole is embodying itself, right? While it is a whole of its whole reality. Earth's whole reality and scale is very, very large, and it moves very, very slow compared to us as an individual, right? Think about beautiful celestial dances that we, you know, in astrology, in astronomy, and that's the large scale. That's what I'm talking about here in this first sort of level of reality. And there's coordination, there's movements, there's a real dance and infinite intelligence happening at that layer, at that large scale size. Yes, it's outside the realm of capacity for our conscious awareness, but it is there. The truth tells us that all of these, the architecture is, reflective and mirrored through all. And we should use that as an anchor point for truth to know, and to, observe what's happening out there. The largest scale, like I said, the celestial, the macro motions. It's the rise in density from third to fourth, the shift from Pisces to Aquarius. These large, slow motion moves, they have huge impact down onto us, but very different than the impact that they see and feel at that scale, right? And like I said, this is the fourth density organic growth, the long-term motion of moving over a long 75,000 years cycle, 25,000 years, of a movement. Um, and I have sort of showing these sections of the universe, sections of reality in the cube, right? Um, Showing how the smaller one in yellow to represent the ego, and to represent, third density, the third ray in the sign of Pisces, right, is smaller, sort of behind us, and that we're coming through and coming closer to us. And the cube will be part of right now is this is the fourth density in the heart center in the color green, and it's also the sign of Aquarius ahead of it, right? So we're shifting away from um, individuals, spirituality, individual ways of interpreting life, the way of seeing, the Christ within us, and building that up, and all of the things that the Pisces age worked for and worked through, and the wisdom of it, right? The really egocentric, personal, human-centered thinking, the individual, um, gaining power and gaining sovereignty is huge, part of those themes. Well, we're really moving out of that on the large scope and moving into what comes next, which is a unification of all individuals. It's opening the heart center, it's empathy, it's rising up and knowing in the one strong sovereign power guy, actually all of us are these one strong power people, and we each need to honor and respect that in the other, and allow them to be that, and allow them to live in their light and to shine it the way that they see fit in their perspective granted to them by God. not to judge them, not to try to change or alter them, but to really be more allowing and accepting and having a more altruistic, positive view of the whole of humanity and the collective, and really seeing, instead of seeing the one Christ mind and the spirit, um, as the sole thing, right? Like I just said, instead uniting and realizing we all have that inside of us, and seeing what the all, when we can come together, um, actually embodying that and honoring that in others, when that space can be created and come together, what will happen there? What can then happen? And that's why we're really stepping into and starting clean slate for what can happen now, because this is where the big shift is happening. But in the middle, um, we have a little bit more of a sense of collective and societal polarities, right? We have third density graduation for the collective that's really being either pulled. So, there's a choice point here, whether you want to reside and you have lessons to learn with third density down there in that yellow sphere still, or whether you're rising into the green, because souls are at different levels and at different rides along the change of Earth herself, and of this reality and playscape. So perhaps their reality and playscape will be in a different setting than those of us who are aligning our ascension with the actual ascension of the big picture, right? Of this current big picture that is shifting and changing. It's splitting kind of into two big pictures, which will leave the other one um, eventually. But like it's a very slow, long thing. Um, and anyway, so the main focus and the drive that's happening and felt on the scale of humanity is the divide of positive and negative polarity. And I really showed this as sort of those the green and red circles, and these sort of like cyclic spirals, either pulling you up or pulling you down. Um, and the third to fourth polarity, organic communion, is intangible. It's not. It's the cumulative processes of all humans on earth. It's not one thing, it's not one individual thing. It can't be assessed like that. It is observed from a distance only and seen by the work it's been done. That's why I have kind of the blurb underneath there with these many different circles showing, and then the sort of good, more defined and real reality in the center, with lots of the other potential bubbles coming off of it. This I really thought was a wonderful and also inspiring and really creative kind of way to explain and add as a helpful guide to thinking about our collective reality, the human scale, the communion space, and seeing how we could step into these different reality bubbles. Our own is at the center always. It's the most real, it's the most vibrant that we're in, but the others we have a chance to step into, and they're transparent, but they're real. And the more we put into them, the more clarity we ask in those spaces, the more depth each of those little circles could become, right? um, they also have energetics to them. They're either negatively or positively charged, and they're either asking for your energy input, and you're either serving those systems and adding your energy into them, or they are out there awaiting service, holding open space, and you see it and you're called to offer service to it, and you're drawn to it to offer your service. When you go into it with an intention of free offering like that, changes the service. It flips the poles, so to speak. It's positively aligned. Um, and so we're being called to an intention of one or the other, right? And collectively, humanity, that's the theme. That's the lesson to be learned right now, is which of the choices is happening. Um, and it's up to us, we'll see, what happens with the collective of humanity, if a majority ascends or not. Um, and finally the individual scale, and I have sort of, if you could see, it's kind of small, but I have the grid as just a circular view with all these little dots out there, because it's very obvious to us, the different places that we step into, the conversations we have, the experiences, we go to this place or that place. It's very clear, and there's space in between, and we go and do this, and there's some other space in between, we go and do this. Um, and we are confronted with this or that. It's not a collective sort of pulling over time. Where have you been a majority of your time offering service? Where have you been a majority of your time? You know, all of humanity. This is a really this or that, because every day, every moment, you have the choices, this or that, right? It's the process points, the very individual view of all those choices. Each one of us gets this own view that then kind of coagulates and comes together as that middle slice. Um, but if you look at the bottom, I have frequency, ascension, organic choices. That's the real thing about what's happening at this scale. It's all about the frequency that is emitted in the interactions, and then the charge left over after the interactions. And that's where we have our full range of dominion, right? That's where we command our world. We take full charge of our frequency, of our intentions and perception of the world, and our energy when we interact with the world. And that makes all the change in the world. And that's all the change we could ever make in the world. And if you want change in your external world, you change your inner world. So yeah, individual inner alchemy is what I kind of put for the individual scale. That's your divinely assigned ascension is another big part of it. And defining the power of choice. I kind of forgot to talk about these last bullet points, but yeah, each scale I think has a role and a purpose, right? And for the individual, it's the power of choice, defining that and owning your choices, having responsibility and accountability for your choices. Um, and the knowledge base of positive versus negative. Is this taking from me? Am I serving something? Is this servitude? I'm entangling myself with enslavement and then pretending I don't know, and why am I crying a victim after? Or am I really assessing this, and am I choosing to offer out my service and saying, yeah, I want to be a part of this. Here, I'll do that. I can offer this. I do that, no problem. And being a part of those things that feel good, that feel positive, that don't take from you, that enable and embody freedom. Excuse me. Such a dry throat with the spring coming in. Having the windows open and then clearing out, spring clean with dust and stuff. It's like my throat has been itchy and scratchy. And also speaking your truth, saying things that are difficult to say and that perhaps are hard to hear, especially the collective. Um, a lot of them feeling like perhaps they don't want to hear these types of things. People don't want to hear that they can have all the all the power to change their world because they've been fit into this victim mold, the slave mold of the archons and the negative agenda for so long, right? um, but for those of us who want to have discernment and understand, this is what the point is. And this is why I have that little organic and inorganic sort of model of the toroidal and of the flow there, of which torus you're choosing. And that aligns you with which dots out in the future, the points that you'll be called to, that you'll see wanting to draw towards, wanting to move into, um, and what are called towards you, right? Because like charges attract like charges out there. So if you're having negative alignments, the echoing and the rebound out there is going to be all those negative potentialities. They're going to light up and call more to you in that ether space, right? Remember what I said at the beginning about those ether being intelligent and lighting up and creating more density around certain things out there in the external world that have been triggered by your thought, your intention, and energies. Rung a little bell out there. Maybe you didn't do it intentionally. Maybe it's your shadow doing it. But when we work and we understand that there's actually language, there's layers happening like that, the answers will come to you. You'll see through your layers and the lenses and be like, oh, it's this one up here. It's that to that. Oh, great. Let's clear it. Let's untangle and get out of it. So yeah, I have talked for way too long. I'm going to close out my share screen here. That's all my infographics for this morning. I know it's a lot, and I really wanted to create a better visuals. And I've been working at creating more of attempting to create a more of a three-dimensional vision of the direct world. But yeah, my artistry skills are very limited, and it's a bit, yeah, out of my capacity to really make uh, a good diagram that I feel confident enough to share at this point. So for now, like those are what I have. Feel free to pull them in and to build other stronger versions of that for yourself and your own understandings. That's what I have been doing. And although it's sort of poorly relayed out, I'm sure you'll find the same sort of difficulty in relaying and explaining out these sort of things. I think we just don't really have a lot of language for it, honestly, right now. But if you find the language and you have things, I'd love to hear them. Please send me emails, put comment down if you want other people to see it. Throw comments in there. I'd love that. Always happy to hear what others see and think. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation this morning. Um, not quite sure what I'm even going to do next in this energetic series. So keep tuned into my Telegram or on my YouTube to see where new videos pop up. I'll keep everybody updated, of course, and I'm sure you'll see more from me in the future. But thank you so much for joining me here this morning. I hope you found it interesting, and I will see you next time.